All right. And so all my meters say we're live. So this is Heller Barnes and welcome, welcome, welcome. And today, Mr. Heller is being a good citizen and got on jury duty in New York. Now, I don't know how he finagled that. I mean, I think he just didn't want to talk to me. He knew if Zora was here, he would be here. But somehow they made him go to jury duty. I'm glad I'm not on. I'm glad I'm not accused of something and have Heller being one of the jurors. But anyway, so that's where he's at today, being a good citizen. And I have the pleasure of being with Zora today. And Zora Johnson's been she's been around. I know she looks like she's still in high school, but she has been doing this a long time, and it's super cool. I think you're gonna be super happy today and excited. So Zora, welcome. Glad you're here. How you feeling today?
I'm good. I'm happy. It snowed in Texas.
Well,
It snowed.
I I grew up in Michigan, so there we would kind of go, yeah, no big deal. But I don't think it's a. How often does this occur?
Once every 3 years,
Oh,
maybe.
okay, okay,
Yeah. But
yeah,
it's like, oh my God, we wake up and hell froze over.
yeah.
It's very exciting.
Okay. Hey, Keith, thanks. Good to see you. So it works out that, I'm here in Southern California. In my area, we'll get snow once every decade and a half. I mean, just a dusting. And at my mom's house, which is 40 minutes away, she'll get it once a year, maybe just because she's where she's at. Anyway, it's something that for those of you who are right now enduring some winter storm, I hate to say this, but the houses out here and probably in Texas are not built for that stuff. So it is worse in my house here in LA when it is at 35 or 40 degrees than it was when I grew up in Michigan. It could be 0, and those homes were just built for that and it was comfortable. It's not so here. So what is it like in Texas?
Oh, it's 27 degrees this morning, so it's very cold.
Okay.
Very
Oh, and
cold.
my wife just said, here, I missed something here. Let me get Zora much louder. Let's watch. She will be, Zora, you will be.
Much louder.
Yep, you will be much louder now. And then I'm going to turn that on. And now you're going to be much louder. Thank you, Lisa, for letting me know that. So, Zora, go ahead. So, luckily, Lisa's out there. She'll watch every week and go, Don, you're not loud, you're too loud. Shut up. Or somebody isn't loud enough, which is really cool because I can't monitor the YouTube feed in real time. So thankfully, and this applies to everybody else. If Lisa wasn't there, if our guests or me or anybody else isn't loud enough, then please let us know. Thank you, Lisa, for doing that. So Zora, Lisa's got your back there. So how did you and I, do
Yay, thank you, Lisa.
you and I mean, I've known you for many years, but I just don't remember. I want to say we met the first time at the New England Narrators Retreat, but I'm not sure if we had crossed paths earlier than, I know we crossed paths in the groups.
Yeah, we met at the New England Narrators Retreat in 21. I think that's
Yeah,
the
it's
first year I went.
3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, 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 yeah. That makes sense to
Yeah.
me. That makes sense. And
But I've actually only, I'm just about to reach my 5 year anniversary doing this.
oh,
So
cool, cool,
I
cool,
haven't
cool.
done it that long. I
Yeah,
still
but
think of myself as new.
okay. Yeah, but okay. Here now, so for the audience, this is funny. Now, performers grow up with this whole thing if they're around other good performers. Performers always tell you if they've been around a while, you never reach your potential. You will never. And parents tell this to their kids, but kids never believe it. But it's like as a performer, it's drilled in your head that you may be better than your peers. I remember Gene Stewart telling me that all the time. Ah, you may be better than the other guys and gals around you. You'll never be close to as good as you could be. He was very emphatic that you just don't arrive as a performer. So you saying, "Oh, I've been in 5 years and feeling like a quote beginner," that's so normal, and that is because, if I understand it right, you have a little bit of a theater background and a performer
Yeah.
background. So you started when you were 25 performing. Is that what I remember?
No, 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 no. I started when I was 7.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been performing forever, but behind a mic it's just different, and I've had to figure out the balance of whether or not you can go whole hog, or and when it's appropriate to go whole hog.
Well, can you go how often can you go whole hog
Well,
in an audiobook in a booth?
I've been realizing that it's more than I think. I was so afraid of overperforming things when I started narrating that I was pulling back so much that everything was kind of getting lost, I think. And recently, particularly because I've been working a lot with graphic audio, and because graphic audio plays more like animation or television, it's more cinematic. It's like I've been given permission,
Oh,
I feel like,
yeah.
to go a little crazy,
Well,
and it works. It still works. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I should just go there more often. And I've had a couple of producers be like, oh my God, will you please just do that? And I'm like,
well,
oh,
yeah, okay.
oh,
So tell me about graphic audio. Is I don't even know what that term is, or I don't use that term.
okay. Graphic Audio is a production company that
Oh,
does full cinematic renderings of like it's multicast. It's got music. It's got sound effects. It's the whole thing. So it's
okay.
like old radio theater
Yeah,
kind of.
okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's a
it's
company, not a
amazing.
style or
Yeah, no, no, no.
yeah, okay,
It's a company.
great.
And yeah, I just got to start working with them this last year, and they're amazing. And it's also getting to work live with somebody when you're recording, which we don't get to do a lot when we're working on our big books by ourselves.
Right.
And um, and so that's been fun getting to have that interaction again.
Now, are you going into a studio or are you Zooming and trying
We
to
Zoom,
you
we
Zoom?
Zoom,
Okay.
we Slack. We Slack is what we do.
Okay, that's fair. That's just another form of that. So you're that's a big difference though, because 98% of us, whatever, pick a number, 95% of us are in our own little room all by ourselves recording a whole book, and now you're going to do the multicast over the wires. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. And it's fun. It mixes things up, and I think that more it's allowed me to take more risk in my own narration.
Yeah, but you're playing
Yes.
off of somebody, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's different. One of the things that for all of us that are just in a regular booth, I, it's the same playing music. If you're recording and you're in your little, and sometimes you're recording all by yourself as a musician, and sometimes you're with a group, and then sometimes you're in front of a live audience, and it's just totally different when you have somebody there next to you that's also performing, and now you're working with them directly back and forth. That's just a different
Yeah.
experience. What have you learned from that compared to doing it all by yourself?
Well, it's nice because you get immediate feedback, and which if getting any feedback at all is hard when if you don't have a director with you, and so that's so rare that we get to have a director working with us, and getting that immediate feedback and being able to take something again instead of that feedback always just being us in our heads going, no, that wasn't it. No, that wasn't it. Because we could do that just
Yeah.
forever and go nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, that's normal.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so here's the question. When you're in the multicast, do you as a team sometimes say, hey, well, I want to do that again, and then talk about it with your co-performer about the way you want to do it? Or,
Well, the thing is that we're not on with the whole cast. We are
oh,
only on with the director at
I
any given
see.
time. So
Okay.
but the director will read the lines and play off of you and all that stuff so that you
Okay.
still have that interaction. But because the casts are so big, there's no way that they could schedule all of us.
I get it. Cool, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard too. Sometimes people are co-performing, and I've had people do this interesting thing where if they can't get with the other narrator, they actually read their lines and kind of monotone or just do a table read type thing where they're not trying to totally perform it big, and then they do their lines so that the spacing is somewhat close to what the way it will be, and then some just leave spaces and then let some editor splice it all together. But if you have a
Yeah.
director there, then they can go, oh, okay. And if they're playing some of it, that at least gives you a starting point for you,
Yeah.
But you're a really good actor. So tell us about your theater. I can't believe you started when you were 7, and then you didn't do
Yeah.
anything until you were in your 30s.
I started with, yes. Yes, I just held it all in,
Yeah, and
and
then
then
it,
it just
boom.
exploded all over the place. Yeah, I started when I was 7, and it was actually the reason I started was because we at my house we did not have a TV, and we were not allowed to watch TV or movies or whatever. But my parents gave us books on tape,
Ah,
So my brothers and I would listen to them nonstop over and over and over again until we had them. Well, I would memorize them, and then I would perform the whole thing for the family, much to their chagrin. And my parents were like, "Oh God, she needs an audience." So they put me in theater, and I ended up going to undergrad at the University of Evansville in Indiana, which is a wonderful undergrad program. A number of my classmates have had huge success. And then I went to graduate school at the Globe Theater in San Diego.
Wow.
So I mostly did classical theater.
And you were there 6 weeks?
It was a 2-year program.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it was a 2-year program, and we got to be part of the Shakespeare company during the summers, doing the whole rep.
So Shakespeare, that's like a rap group that gets together and does things. Is that close?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally, 100%.
Yeah.
Old school though, like really old school rap.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
now, were you doing a traditional Shakespeare, or did you do a modern version of it, or a?
it depended on the director.
Okay.
Depended on the director and the production. But it was an incredible experience. We got to work with some cool people, and um, I actually met another narrator, J. Paul Bamer, was in a production there, and he's been doing audiobooks now forever, and he used to go up to LA to record on our off days.
Right.
And I was always like, oh my God, that's so cool. I've always wanted to do them. And he was like, no, you don't. He was like, no, it's a lot of work. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do work, I swear. But yeah, but that was back when audiobooks were just starting to get big, I think
Mhm.
2005, 2004.
Yeah, but they were still on.
So
Were they still on cassettes during those days?
I think they had moved to like that really
See.
futuristic CD thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
as a young musician, I used to have to drive all the time to gigs, and so my car would always have a tape pack of books on tape, and I was always listening to cassettes, and then it went to CDs, and that so I just it's just been part of my learning experience over my whole life was while driving, and I used to drive a lot, and I would start there, and then I'd be listening to them all the time. I had a little portable. I had a Walkman back in the day when cassettes had this
Yeah.
little thing and doing all this stuff. But anyway, um, I love, for those of you that haven't seen Zora's site, it's awesome. I like that you
I
are
just redesigned it. That's like brand spanking new.
okay. Well, here's the thing that I like about it. So I will put up. Let's see. I'm going to do this right now. I will copy this here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this site up here so that people, if you haven't seen it, you definitely need to go out and check this out. And I'll highlight that too so that you can get that URL nice and big. And the cool thing that I like is that you are so laid back, and it says no, you're leaning into your strengths, and you're leaning into it. And one of the things that narrators just unfortunately have a tendency to do is say, well, I'm going to undersell myself, and then I'm going to over deliver. It's like so your site is so cool because it says wicked smart, wicked fun, wicked. You're leaning into your strengths as
Yeah.
opposed to many people don't want to, we all, first off, no one wants to brag, in a
No, well,
sense.
and we're afraid anything positive is going to come off as bragging, you know.
Correct, correct. And
Don't say
you're
something
not,
nice about yourself.
yes,
Shh.
well, it is uncomfortable for all of us, though. There's nobody in
Yeah.
this, I just don't know anybody unless they're a total narcissist or something that wants to directly go ahead and say, boy, I'm really good at that. In my case, if anyone goes to my Facebook page and they go to my profile, it says audio expert. And I had a thing for a decade where I just didn't like, and I don't like the word expert because of my performance background, where Gene Stewart would go, no, you'll never be as good as you can be. You need to, the mindset was be happy about how far you've come, be proud of the progress you've made, and you deserve that. That's cool. But you aren't even close to what you could be, and therefore you always had to hold both of those thoughts at the same time.
Absolutely, sure.
And that's what performers do. But the reality is in marketing, imagine you had a theater production and you go, we're doing Shakespeare and we've got an average cast with an average director and where the theater's just okay, hoping we'd get people in the seats and then they'd be blown away at how Zora performs, but they don't promote it like you're the greatest actor. They just promote it like it's just okay, and knowing, well, nobody shows up. And so your site is a great example of somebody who's playing their strengths. So I highly recommend everybody go out and check out your site because I
Well,
think
and
it's
I think that one of the things that's important about, because I actually, for my last website design, I won the Sovas for best voiceover website because there it's a thing. It
good.
really
That's
exists.
cool.
And I think it's so important in your website for you to show your personality because that's what we bring. There are lots of talented narrators, lots of people that could play any one book. Um, but it's your personality that's going to get you cast in a specific project. And if you can make it clear what you're bringing that's different, like what your energy is, what your sense of humor is, that kind of thing, I think that's really important to show on your website because that's where they go look.
Right.
That's where they hear your samples.
Well, you've done it marvelous. This it's spectacular. So when I
Thank you.
saw it, I prepping for this show. I was like, oh, I like her. But I also like the concept, and I think it's important that everyone takes away the example of you can't be shy in your marketing. And like I know
Mm.
I just hated that word expert, but I did have some competitors that were using it, and people were, and it's like, I hate that word, but I'm going to use it anyway. And I think ultimately that's what people have to do is lean into their strengths and let people know what have you done. And yours to talk about that you've, 30 years of performance and you've done theater and commercial voiceover and how many you've recorded a bunch of audiobooks and you've worked with these publishers and then great samples and stuff. And anyway, you're doing a whole lot of stuff right that everyone else should emulate. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, be more like me, guys.
See? But it's uncomfortable to talk about, but it's a really good thing to do. And it is something that over time, um, you're so smart to lean into it. But now, was that when you did your first one 5 years ago, did you lean into it really hard like this?
No, 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 no. My first one was very, very kind of run of the mill. I wanted to be, well, the thing is with audiobooks, we want to be able to do everything. You want to be able to say, I do the serious, heavy lit fic, and I do rom com, and I do nonfiction, and you're like, well, how do I put all that in there? I should just make myself really bland so that they can imagine me in any of those places.
Right.
And the thing is that ultimately your samples have to be able to show that. And if you have kind of a general website, you yourself, your voice might be memorable to them
Hmm.
immediately, but you want you to be memorable as well. And so when I did my site that won the Sovas, I was like, it needs. I'm colorful. My hair at the time was like Technicolor blue,
I think
and
that's how it was when I met you. When I
I
think back
know,
now, yeah, yeah.
and it's been fuchsia and purple and all these things. I'm very subtle right now. It's only sort of purple, sort of.
Me too.
But I know it's a good look for you.
Yeah.
Uh, but we my husband helps me build the website because I'm great with the ideas, but not the tech. So we had a lot of fun building that one together, and it had a very 1950s vibe. And then this
Smart.
one we went a little farther back.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I recommend people look at it. And Keith Brown. So I would had just ask a great question, um, and I'd love to hear you say more about worrying about quote overperforming and holding yourself back at the beginning and learning to give yourself permission to go further. Now, by the way, if you're doing a single, so Heller, many people that have a theater background do overperform when they have a mic that's 6 inches away from them.
Yes. Oh
They,
my God. The first time I went to a VO audition when I got my agent in New York City,
yeah.
I went up to the mic and I like projected like I was in a Shakespearean auditorium and they were like, "Whoa, like what are you doing?" It was it was awful. It was awful. So, yeah, don't do that.
Right. So that's the thing. So now that is true. So people that come from a theater background should just know when you have a mic 6 inches away, it does change. And now today, when people are mic'd on stage, it also changes the way they are going to perform because you just don't need, you're not projecting to the back of the room. You actually could whisper these days with the current generation of microphones and have a quote relatively intimate scene, and it still can play because there is technology that's helping with that. So it's not exactly the same. You don't have the same stage whispers, and you can do some other things here. So tell us about, like, now the contrast that you've gotten into. You obviously have backed off from being a full project to the back of a
But
300
that's
seat.
and that's a volume thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the intention
Uh-huh.
behind the character, the intention and all that stuff can stay as intense and as big
Yes.
as long as you remember that your audience is like you're talking into their ear.
Right.
But you don't want to drop the emotion, you don't want to drop the connection to the character or the character's intention and make that smaller
Right.
because that makes the performance less.
Okay, but here's the dichotomy, or here's the issue that you are well aware of. Intensity does not equal volume, but
Exactly.
the young performer conflates those two. And also, we have a script that says, she yelled.
Yes.
What the problem with the words she yelled are is that's trying to convey an emotion while I'm reading something. And when I'm reading something, I need it to be a big word in order to have an idea of what she said. And so she yelled, she exclaimed, she shouted from the rooftop. But
Right.
that doesn't mean that I have to shout in order to have that emotion, but it was needed in written format, and it is telling you something about the character or the voice, but it's not telling you that you need to be shouting at the top of your lungs to get that emotion.
Right.
Do I remember you're a mom?
I am a mom.
Okay. The
I have teenagers.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, good for you. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because you don't look like you
They're
could ever have
amazing.
teenagers. But
They are amazing, weird humans.
well, I have 5, so I can see you. And yes, I totally relate to. Here's a question. You ever been in a store and needed it, and rather than shouting at your kids, you have said to them something the equivalent of "Don't do that."
Well, you get quieter
You
when you're in a store, but they know exactly how bad it is
Yes.
because of your commitment.
Right. Right. So I
Yeah.
think that is one of the classic. I've seen moms do it in stores. My wife has done it. I have done it in stores as a dad. I mean, parents do that where they say a couple, like 2 words to their kids. Sometimes it's one, don't. And then but the way they say the word don't, those children do actually understand that, ooh, I've crossed a line someplace.
Well,
And
I always thought teachers were way scarier if they got quiet when they were mad.
okay. But I think that's a perfect example of how the intent can come across without the volume, and parents do it all. I mean, they have experiences of that coming up 2 or 3 times per year where they're in a public setting and they need to rein their children in for something. Could be dangerous for the children, could be just they don't want them to do something. There's a lot of situations where it will come up, and they will issue a command to their children for one of 100 reasons. Maybe it's misbehavior, maybe it's a dangerous situation, and can stop them with the proper intensity without the volume, because they don't want to draw attention to themselves and their kids, but they need their kids to stop something. And it's a classic example of being able to perform with intensity without the volume. And that's an art. I do think it is something that most performers have a tough time doing at first. How was it for you?
It's still hard. I still am afraid of being too much, whatever that means.
Yeah, that's fair.
And being over the top, or that if I go like too silly or something like that, that it'll come off as insincere. And more often than not, when I'm getting feedback from colleagues and friends, they're always like, Zura, we know you can take this so much farther. And I'm always like, oh, I'm just afraid that if I do, but then when I do, it's always the best take.
Right. I do think sometimes, so I'll tell on my wife here. She said something almost exactly these words. Now she's really good about it today, but originally she's like, "Can you say that like you mean it?" And I I was borderline offended. I actually was really offended. It's like I I was, but 'cause she said, "Can you go a little bigger on that? That sounds just like you're not into it." And I would borderline be offended by it, and then I'd listen to the take later because I had the recording, so I could go hear the original one and go, "Oh, darn it, she is right. This is terrible. She's right." And figured out that yes, when you just hear it, it doesn't sound big enough. There's not the
Yeah.
intensity there that is needed. Even if I didn't need to be louder, but I did have to have a much better intensity for it. And I think actors struggle with that whole thing and without some external feedback. Now you're saying by ourselves. So do you solicit feedback from people? Well, of course you went to
Oh, yes.
you,
Yes.
you tell us about that.
I need a director. Um,
I think we all do.
badly, please. We all do.
Yeah.
The thing is that part of my issue is that I do. There are narrators that I love that have very subtle performances, and so sometimes when I get an audition for something that I'm like, oh, this would be really beautiful if it was subtle. I can imagine this person doing it, and so I try and do their version, which is not what I do well. And so me trying to do the subtle version comes off as insincere. It's not because I was being small, it's because I wasn't being me.
Ah.
And I have a really really good group of friends, and I have had different little groups of friends that I go to the most during different parts of my career. And I think it changes kind of depending on where you are and where they are. But I think it is so important to have a group of colleagues, people that are kind of in the same place as you, whether it's that you started at the same time, you're booking the same kind of projects, you're working with the same publishers regularly, to be able to go to somebody that's you're on a level with and say, what do you get from this? What are you hearing that I'm not hearing? Because I've listened to it 5,000 times now, and it all sounds the same.
Right.
Um, so what are you taking away from it? And when you get the closer you're able to get with your group of friends, I think that the more they know of what you're capable of, and so they can help draw things out of you that you don't realize you're missing.
Why would you, after 25 years of being a performer, go to the New England Narrators Retreat? You already knew it all.
No, I did not.
You knew
Oh,
more
well.
than a lot. I mean, hey, you knew way more than 90x% of the people out there about performing. So why would you go do that? It's not. It takes a lot of time and effort and energy and
Well,
resources.
it's a completely different medium than stage, and learning and getting to be live and in person with somebody giving you direction is different. It's all coaching is wonderful and important, and I think very necessary. But I, especially when you're beginning. I mean, I think we all get to a point where you do less coaching
Right.
and more work with your colleagues,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
feedback.
Yeah, yeah. That makes
But
sense.
the retreats are incredible because you get that one-on-one time with a director. You get to see how your colleagues work, and you can listen to them and see what's working for them and what isn't, what you can take away from the feedback that they get. Um, and it's an opportunity in person to get closer to your friends, to your colleagues that you don't ever see. And they are people that you're going to need at some point, at a distance.
What do you mean you
Uh,
need these people for? People need people, and
yes, this is a very people need people
yeah,
moment. No, it's, yeah. And part of it is because we're alone all the time. And there are certain things that narrators that deal with that it doesn't matter how much your mom loves you or your spouse or your kids, they don't get it. Um, and to be able to talk to another mom who's a narrator and try and figure out how they balance schedule stuff, to talk to another, somebody that I am potentially going to be moving soon. And I need to be able to talk to colleagues of mine that have gone through a move and, like, how do you change your schedule? How much time do you give yourself to set up your new space? And we need to be able to lean on each other. And it's wonderful that we have social media and that we have tools like this. But at the same time, being able to be in person with people and be like, oh my God, you're all real, there's nothing like it.
yeah. It does change the. Plus, you end up if you had lunch with somebody 2 days or dinner, or you see them afterward, you're walking around taking a little hike. It does change the relationship, and then when you have an issue or something that you're concerned about, to send a message or to send them a text message directly and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
how would you approach this? What do you think?" You're not some cold call. It does change the relationships dramatically for all those. I've been at so many conferences. Once you know somebody, then I'm not afraid to give them a shout and say, "Hey, can I bounce this idea off you? What are you doing
Yeah.
with this case?" And for me, accountability of partners, luckily I have a son that's 40, and sometimes he's my best accountability partner. Like, we meet every Monday and we have a set appointment. I don't know if you do that sort of thing, but I have somebody. I mean, he knows we're gonna talk, and it's really a bizarre thing. He's my son, and yet at the same time, since he's in his 40s, he's an adult and knows more than I do in a whole bunch of areas. And we said, we're going to talk, and we're going to talk about what happened this week and what I did and what I intended to do and how much of it I got done or I didn't. And I got to, crap, I got to talk to him about, I didn't get this done. I'm starting like on Saturday thinking, crap, I didn't get that done. I got this meeting on Monday. Did you do that sort of thing as well?
Oh, absolutely. And it depends on the day too, like how badly you need it. There are days where, like, my focus is just completely shot for one reason or
Yeah. Yeah.
another,
Yeah.
and I need to be able to say, okay, I got something done. You guys, I got another half hour done, and they're like, yeah, you did it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be able to get 15 more minutes done. It's going to be okay. And so there are days when we will be texting in our group constantly, and then we won't talk for a few days because everybody kind of gets into their groove and everybody's doing fine, and we'll check in with each other. Sometimes we check in with each other about stuff that has nothing to do with narration, just because it's nice to know that somebody else is watching out for you.
Yep. Yep.
And again, like, I live in a place where my people don't live here.
Oh,
um
what area of the
i'm in
country are you in
I'm in
again?
the Texas suburbs. And I've met some lovely people in Texas, and we have some friends, but, like, I've never found my group, my people, and the PTO was never going to be that. And so to have a circle of friends, even though they're really far away, I think is so necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Keith here is talking about where being part of this community and making true friends has been actually the best business decision I ever made. Even though it obviously is really about supporting one another. This is a weird business, though.
We're
You and
weird. It's true.
Well, part of it is that you and I, let's pretend that we're both up. We're not going to be up for the same parts. We're not going to be up for the same books. We're not going to be ever competing with each other. No matter how good. First, your world's ahead of me, and if I were going to do, and I'm not a great narrator, but if I were going to aspiring to be one, I'm never any competition to you. And if I were, maybe in your same space, pretend we were, peers doing the same sorts of books, it's still one of those weird things where we're rarely directly competing with anybody. I'm sure it comes up
Well, you'd
occasionally.
be surprised.
Yeah? Tell me
My
about it. Tell me
girlfriends, my
about it.
girlfriends and I end up in the same circles very regularly. And
Yeah?
like recently, one of my good friends didn't realize that I was up for a book that she was up for.
Ah,
And I found out she'd gotten cast. And I knew it was her first time working with a publisher. And I was like, holy shit, I can't believe you got it. And that's so awesome. And kind of went nuts for her. And then someone else mentioned, oh, yeah, that's Zora was up for that. And she was like, "What?" And I was just like, "No, I don't. If I had been concerned at all about it, I would have given you shit.
yeah.
But and I would. But at the same time, there have been quite a few times when there's been overlap in friends groups where there will be three of us up for the same book. And the thing is, we might have a similar vocal quality. Maybe that's why we get called in. Maybe we all have a great sense of humor or something. But ultimately, we're going to give completely different performances.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know what? If you don't get it, it wasn't your book.
Yeah. So what? So do you end up auditioning a lot these days? I mean, is that something that you're doing regularly? Are you at that point in your career where they call out your name and they're just waiting for you to get done with one so you can do the next one for them? How does what?
No. Yes, yes. I have a comfortably booked schedule.
Okay,
Sometimes I have a tendency to overbook just because
because you're a performer.
I freak out that I'm never getting another book again, and I'm like, okay,
Classic,
well, I have to
classic,
do these.
classic.
Say yes to everything.
Yes, yes, we're all
So
part of that group.
that was
Yes.
one of the things I was working on a lot last year was when to say no and when to draw a line. And so I'm booked out a little ways, and I get auditions regularly enough. I don't get auditions every day, anything like
Are
that.
you seeking them out, or they're seeking you out most of the time, or
Um,
have you have a how in the
Mostly
world are
they
you
seek
getting
right
auditions?
now. They're mostly seeking me out. I'll
Okay.
just hear from because I've worked with enough production houses and publishers at this point that if something comes up, they'll send it to me. But I do a lot of outreach,
Okay, I
and
was just going to ask you about that. What
I do a
explain
lot of
outreach to
outreach.
people?
So, and I think that this is one of the things that's changed a lot in the last, really even just since I started 5 years ago, is that it's important to constantly put your name back in front of people, put your voice back in front of the people that are giving the jobs out, because the thing is that there's so many of us now. And sometimes I will be very honest. Someone will come up and say, I really want to get into narration. And I want to say, no, we have too many. So, like, no, do something else, please.
Right.
It's bad enough. And, and the thing is that because there are so many people that are genuinely talented and could be booking jobs regularly, you need to remind them that you're there.
So
Because
how
even
often,
if
how much of your week, I mean, so you do this all yourself? You have people help you with it? How does it work?
I would love to have a personal assistant, but I also wouldn't know what to tell them to do because I'd be like, I'll just do it because you're going to do it wrong. Um, I I do outreach every 2 months,
Okay.
unless and that's usually like a bigger outreach. But I always try to tie it into something that's happened, whether it's something really important that's been released, whether it's been a nomination, whether it was a specific review that I want to share. I want to have something specific to say.
Hmm.
It's not just a like, hey, checking in again. Um, it needs to have intent. It needs to be brief. Um,
What's your definition of brief?
I think that newsletters are lovely, and I had a lot of fun designing mine, and I had it like a little newspaper, and it had articles in it and stuff. And then I was like, nobody, not going to read all this. Nobody has time for that. And keeping it to like 3 sentences is really,
Is that your
really
target
winning. Oh yeah,
these days? That's your target? 3
yeah,
sentences?
three, 4 sentences just to say, hey, it's been a minute. I got this thing happening. It's awesome. This is my availability. Take care. Peace out. Never ask a question that you expect answered. If you do, still don't expect it to be answered
Okay.
because that's not their priority, um, unless it's for something you're already working on. And I try to I do a lot more small outreach now that I've developed relationships with specific producers where I'll just reach out to them about something funny that happened or that, oh, hey, I just learned how to ride a motorcycle. Just, in case you have
Yeah,
any
but also,
motorcycles
so
coming up.
if drill down on this, that means you have developed a relationship with these people and you actually have some idea that they might be interested in the motorcycle thing and think, oh, that's cool, or
Yeah.
they don't,
Oh,
or
it's
they're the,
usually, yeah.
but you also can have some people that like don't want to hear from us for 3 or 4 months at a time, and you figure out who those people are too, and then you might not send
Yes.
the funny thing to that one guy who says, like, don't contact me more than twice a
Yeah.
year, and you think, oh yeah, I've got. So is that what you're saying? You're niching it down to their personality and
Well,
what they like.
and it depends on how much I've worked with them. Because, like, if I've worked with them a couple of times and we've actually developed a friendship, a working friendship,
Right.
I have more reason to keep in touch with them. They know me better. They know my work better. I think that makes them more likely to cast me anyway or to
Right.
think of me.
Right.
And so to focus your energy on those people instead of trying to develop relationships with every single producer out there,
Right.
um, which is it's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. And I think it's Johnny that's like, you only need one publisher to keep hiring you.
Well, so Maria McCann, most of you know that I'm friends with her. She's out here in LA. She teaches auditioning to actors out here. And she has this one line that has stuck with me where she basically said, I think you need like 3 casting directors. If you get the right 3, when you've accumulated the right 3 casting directors, they can keep you busy for the rest of your life practically, because you don't need 400 of them. Now, you do have to,
It is
over time, develop the ones, and you're saying one
so true.
publisher could keep you busy for the next 2 years.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah. I think more important than collecting publishers,
Mm-hmm.
which we all like to do because it's so much fun to be like, and now I work for so and so. It's exciting and it should be celebrated when it happens. But ultimately, it's getting a job again at one
Right.
place and getting them to recognize that, oh, this is somebody reliable that puts out a good product that has this range. I know how to use their voice. If you have that person, that's all you need.
Right.
And I feel like at this point I've probably got like 4 or 5 of those that I can reliably reach out to one on one and be like, hey, do you have something coming up?
Right.
If I have a hole open up in my schedule, if something gets canceled or delayed, I can reach out to them and not feel like I'm being obnoxious. Because we're all afraid of being obnoxious and, oh, I'm gonna annoy them and they're never gonna cast me because I asked for a job.
Uh, by the way, this is not news to you. If you contact them, they do know ultimately
You want a job.
you want a job, and they know that. So to act like, well, I just wanted to know how your cat. I mean, first off, if you are friends with somebody, it's okay. Then yeah, I do want to know how their cat's doing. If they had a whatever. I do want to know how their dog or their kid is doing.
But if
I
you're
am sincerely
contacting their
interested.
work email to
But
find that out.
yes, yes. So Lisa asked a question here that let me highlight it here. You mentioned reviews. Do you read your reviews, or does somebody else screen your reviews and send the fun ones to you?
I read my reviews. I read my reviews. It depends. It depends on the project. Um, Anything that shows up in audiophile, I'm gonna read because I'm like, oh my god. Um, but like Audible reviews in general, I really at this point I might get a shitty one, and I'm like,
Well,
I'm gonna say horrible things and swear at the person and be like, you know what,
yeah,
jog on.
yeah, yeah,
But the thing is that like I have books where I will have a couple of 1-star reviews where the heading on the review is like appalling narrator. And then I will have 15 5-star reviews where they're like, oh my God, the narration. So it's like
yeah.
just recognizing that you're not going to be for everybody
Right. You,
is,
you almost were inoculated from that though from your theater reviews back in the day, because I don't know
yes.
any performer that hasn't had some awful reviews if there's in print at some points, and learning how to just go. I mean, first you ask your coach and you ask your peers, or if you got the same review, if I got the same thing that always said you you always whatever in musical terms there's some things they could say negative. I'd go ask
Yeah.
some of my peers, is that, if I've constantly got something, but one review? And how did you develop that thick skin? Did that come from your theater background, or was it just getting the point where you just ignore them?
I think it had more to do with turning 40 and not giving a fuck anymore. I just don't give a fuck.
Okay. Well, we're not going to start that discussion. When you turn 60,
No,
by the
it's
way, all wow, old guys, get off my lawn, and all these cliches you hear, it's true, because there's sometimes where I had a guy cut me off at Costco the other day going into the gas station where he came over about 6 car lanes. You know what I did? I stopped my car, and first I cut him off because he was such a rear end. I got out of my car and I said, "You're lucky I'm not an 18-year-old guy with a weapon in my car, because I'd come out and shoot your tires. But just be polite in the lines." And I got back in my car. He backed right off. I would have never done that 20 years ago. I was just so
yeah.
incensed that he was so rude to everyone. He was cutting in front of people, and anyway, that's an older guy being kind of a rear end because our filters aren't working anymore. And are you saying
No,
when
it's just yeah, I don't care as much. And yeah, absolutely. It stings when especially if it's a project that you really loved and
yes.
somebody was like, I thought this was rubbish. You're kind of like, "Ah, ow,
Yeah. Yeah.
ow,
It's definitely an
stop
owl.
it. But also, but also I chose to go read it. So
Yeah.
that's on me.
Okay. So, but you have a much thicker skin, but now you don't care. But also having children helps with that stuff, and
Oh yeah.
so you're not
Yeah,
actively going out though. It's more you bump into them if they're on Audible. Is that correct, or do you actually
yeah.
still read most of
Well,
them?
it's no, I don't generally read most of them. If it's a book that came out recently
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like excited to see what people think of it,
Okay.
and I'll check it in the first couple weeks that it's out to see if anything showed up. There is one book I have that gets consistently amazing reviews.
Yeah.
And I love going and it's actually still getting reviewed, and it came out like almost 2 years ago. And so I love
What's
getting
its
to go
name?
Battle Trucker.
I'm gonna.
What the Truck?
Okay, I'm gonna go find that. I'm gonna see if I can find it and put the link in there. Tell us about the review. What did you get?
It is
What now? What do you
it
like?
is the
Do you like it?
uh, this is the most fun I have ever had doing an audiobook. Most fun. I've done books that were more personal to me. I've done books that, were more emotional, all that. But this book, this series is so funny. And it's a lit RPG about the world ends and it's taken over by a video game system, but the main character is a long haul trucker named Junkmouth Jill, and she has the most creative swearing vocabulary you could possibly imagine. And she's just trying to make it across the country to save her girlfriend, and and she's like picking up people along the way to save them in her truck, and the truck turns into a TARDIS, basically. It's bigger on the inside, so she can save her. And there's dinosaurs, and it
Well,
is
there's two
hilarious.
of them that I see so
Yes,
far.
there's two. There's
I
two, and I'll be recording the third one this summer.
Okay, so people should check out the first one first. Obviously, is that your favorite or the second one?
The second one's even better.
Okay.
They're
What?
both, but you have to start with the first one.
Oh, okay. Then what I'm
Yeah.
going to do is I'm going to grab the link for the first one, throw it in the, so that it is one of those things that
But
is
when I got a review from a trucker that was like, I've been listening to this the whole time I'm driving. I can't wait for the next one. It's so much fun. I was like, yay! Yay! Truckers listen to my trucker book.
well, let's talk about this genre of lit RPG, which is kind of a big deal these days. Well, your thoughts on it?
Oh, I love it. I'm absolutely crazy about it.
Why?
It's
Con-
bizarre. It is so ridiculous. And one of the things, if I have an audition for a lit RPG, it's one of those genres like I never feel like I have to hold back because it's the genre itself is so over the top. I mean, everything's sort of laid out like it's either a Dungeons and Dragons kind of world or like it's a video game kind of world.
mm-hmm.
Um, there is nothing remotely like real about it because even in fantasy worlds, it's real. It's very real to the people that are there, and it's their world. But there's this disconnect in lit RPG that is somebody from a real world going into a not real world situation
Okay.
that is ridiculous.
And that
And it
gives
just
you as a
allows for so much
performer.
play.
Okay, so what does that do for you as a performer?
Um, the characters could be absolutely anything. You never know what's coming. The first lit RPG I did had an ant man in it, and he had to speak through mandibles. So
Oh,
he was in the middle of his speeches, he was constantly going like that.
well, yeah, but that's
And,
traditional, right?
you
Comes from
know,
Shakespeare, if I remember.
mandible
Ant-Man.
people, it's just silly. And so you never know what you're going to get. And that's what I love about it.
And do you seek those out now?
When I can, yeah. And there are a couple of producers I've reached out to specifically to say I would love to do more of this. But there aren't the tough thing for the ladies still is that there still are not a ton of lit RPG that have female MCs.
Okay.
It's definitely there's more. It's getting better, um, but it's a fun genre.
That's super cool. If somebody, so we've got a few more minutes here. If somebody were newer, what do you recommend if I'm in my first 6 months or a year? But by the way, I think I'm pretty good. My mom's really excited about my voice.
I'll
Um,
bet.
yeah, I know. So- and that means a lot, doesn't it?
Does
What?
it means everything. You're
Yeah.
going to be a great success.
Thank you. Any guidance you would give somebody who was starting off, over the last year or so? What should they look at doing, or maybe insights that you have that you would tell your younger self about this business? But if they were starting today, what anything you can think of that you would let them know about? What should they do? How do they become more
I
successful?
um First of all, be humble. Um,
I lost that game. Okay, next
be
thing.
there's a really fine line though. You need to be humble, even especially if you're going in with experience and you know you're bringing something to the table. Don't act like you know everything. And
Say that
until you know
again.
the
Wait, we
community,
had a glitch
be
in our
very,
audio there.
very
Say that again.
careful.
We had a glitch in our audio. You need to say that again, please.
Okay,
Go
what do I
back
need to
to
say
go
again?
back to
I don't know what I said.
you said you have to be humble, and then going into that.
You have to be humble,
Hmm.
and as you're getting to know the community, you need to be tread lightly. Make sure that you know what's going on before you open your mouth. Sometimes, I think, to be blunt, um, even if you're coming into it with a lot of experience, you don't act like you know everything because you don't. It's a new ball game, and be proud of the things that you do know, and absolutely be upfront about okay, this is what I'm bringing to the table, but don't act like that means that you're entitled to something. And I think that I think that there's a trend through narrators that have some narrators who have come up through TikTok and social media, which has been a huge tool for getting into it. And I think that some people are using it to incredible advantage. That I didn't need to do that. I had ACX, and ACX is kind of falling off, I think. And so the social media thing is really important, but you also want to get to know your community and make sure that you're bonding with your community before you start bragging.
Well, it's kind of, could I summarize that as know your audience?
Absolutely. And I absolutely, because you are going to be part of the community. You're part of the community. Even as a noob, we're
Yeah.
happy you're here, and be part of the community. Don't exile yourself just because you have followers, because your followers aren't going to cast you.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, it may influence somebody unless they start thinking that you're, well, one of the things that I think it, there are a lot of great actors out there who want to do more of this type of work. And so being a great actor, being a great performer is a huge part of the business. But I
Absolutely.
also think one of the things that Heller does brilliantly and is part of, he's a fun guy for people to be around, so people like working with him. The other thing he does always, that guy is almost, I don't know of him ever being late on a book. And if he was ever going to
Oh God,
be,
yeah.
because he got sick or he had, like, he has jury duty this week, okay?
You communicate.
He is
It's real easy.
he is going back to anybody who he had something he was going to deliver this week and said to them, just like as soon as he knew he had jury duty, I got a message from him that said, I don't know if I have jury duty on Tuesday today, but you know, I'm on notice that I might have jury duty, and I knew about this a few days ago in advance so that we could plan and make sure.
Yeah.
And then when it came up that he did, he communicated that with me as soon as possible. And I don't employ him. I mean, I'm not like if he hadn't told me, I would have dealt with it the same day. So would you? We would have done that. But
Yeah.
the second he knew that there was a potential conflict, I heard about it. And that's
Yeah.
kind of part of the way he's gone from, you know, when he was a beginner, he was good to work with. He's always submitting things early. He just loves to be early and he builds into his schedule. Hey, you know,
Yes.
he adds an extra week
Absolutely.
to something. Maybe
And
do you
when
do
you're
the same
working,
thing?
oh, absolutely. As much as I can.
Yeah.
Lately, I've been absolute rubbish with it because I'll go, oh, I have that open week. Yeah, I can take that. Even though that open week was supposed to be to give me more of a buffer.
Right.
Um, I have gotten a lot quicker at my narration than I used to be, though.
Right.
So it doesn't mess me up as much as it would have if I had tried to squeeze something in at the beginning. At the beginning, I gave myself lots of time,
Okay.
more time than I thought I needed, always.
And
Yeah.
so I'm going to change. Lisa ask a question here. More about ACX falling off, please. What have you observed that makes you say that?
The last few times that, and I don't go on ACX very often anymore, unless an author reaches out to me and they're like, hey, I posted this thing on ACX and I'd like you to look at it. I'll go take a look. But the auditions, a lot of the books that are going up are not the same quality that was there even when I started. And it's a so it's the options. It's just not a lot of opportunity. I
Right.
feel like, and I think that a lot of that is due to the fact that publishers caught and production houses have caught on to the fact that there's some very good indie authors that were going there, and they are reaching out to those authors before they go to ACX and saying, hey, we'll produce this for you.
Right.
And it's better for the authors financially more often than not,
Yeah.
um, because it's a huge amount of money to put up front when you're just starting as an author.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of authors that would have gone to ACX that I know now go to production companies. And I often send indie authors to production companies because I'm like, I know you don't have $5,000 to produce this book right now.
Right.
This is another option.
And if they do royalty share, then of course they get it. It's it just depends on who happens to be on that day to audition and things like that. And it's not the same as people that are
Yeah,
getting paid an hour, a per finished hour type thing. Correct?
right. And royalty share, I mean, you have to be very picky about your royalty shares, and it's hard to do in the beginning when you really just want work.
Right.
And I mean, the books that I did at the very beginning from royalty share, I mean, sold 36 copies. Like I never made a dime.
Right.
And then once I got better about being pickier, I started finding ones that actually
Paid out.
ended up paying me.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, our hours, our hour. I'm gonna throw that
Per
on my
hour.
tongue twisters. Can you say you? I'll bet you can say that even better than I can. Our hour has come to an end.
Our hour has come to an
So
end.
you're a joy. You're a joy. Thank you so much for joining us
Yay.
this week. And for those who are watching, anything you want to promote before we wrap up here? You have anything? I should ask you that at the beginning.
Read or listen to Mother of Rome by Lauren J.A. Baer. It's incredible, incredible book that just came out.
Now, did I get the right Rome there? I just called. Is that Mother of Rome, or is Rome
That's
a
the one.
person?
No, that's the one. That Rome, the
Okay.
big one.
And is that in audio format, or you have to
Yes.
go old school and actually read the darn thing?
No, it's in audio, and I narrated that one with Caleb Summers, who is wonderful and lovely.
Okay. Awesome. So thank you for being here. For those of you who, so I have to get that, and then I have to do my little, be sure you subscribe, be sure you like this. Comments after the show in YouTube are insanely helpful. You can share the same link you did to get here, and you can share it in groups. You can share it wherever you want. It's very helpful. We really appreciate it. And of course, next week, Johnny will be back unless the murder trial, I don't know what kind of trial he's on. Whatever he's doing as far as being on jury duty were to extend way beyond what we expect. Johnny will be back next week. And as always, we look forward to seeing you on the wires. You have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.